Okay, welcome to the program. It is one of those days where we do away with the preamble. We do away with all the niceties off the top and maybe a mild joke here or there. When you have two very special guests with a lot to get to, you want to get to our update and our outline right away on the program. Apologies for anyone who likes the banter between me and Zach off the top. You're not going to get it today. What you're going to get is what's coming up on the program. Daily Outline, powered by FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. And we've got two perfect guests today. Pierre McGuire, my partner for tomorrow on our draft watch-along, will be aboard. Rocky Thompson, the new head coach of the Bridgeport Islanders, will be here. JJ Peterka will be discussed. The new CBA will be discussed. Risers and fallers and maybe trade speculation at the draft. And, trades, and more trades. And with that, we will bring aboard Pierre McGuire, who will be with me tomorrow starting at 7 o'clock Eastern for our watch-along draft special. Pierre McGuire joins me now on the sheet. Pierre, first of all, salut mon chum, ça va?
Ça va très bien, mon ami, and it's great to talk to you. Great to be your partner going forward for this draft show tomorrow. There are two really important days in the on the NHL calendar. One's the day the Stanley Cup's awarded, and the other day is the draft. The draft, because you're welcoming all these new bodies into the National Hockey League. I always loved the draft, whether I was working it, whether I was working in it, whether I was broadcasting it. I love the draft.
It's one of those days where it's always a good news story, right? Like I was saying this, I was on the Sekeres and Price show today, and they're like, why do you love the draft so much? And it's like, well, everything's a good news story. The parents are happy, the kids are happy, the teams are happy. Everyone's got smiles. Like, all the tentpole events around the NHL. How many days you look at and go, everybody's happy at the end of it? Like that's what the draft is. But as you and I have discussed, I remember you and I having this conversation actually at the gym in the Montreal draft. This is the week where you got to figure out who's being honest and who's lying and who's telling half truths and where the truths are. Winston Churchill would talk about the truth at wartime, and there's one great quote that always stuck with me. He said, at wartime or during war, the truth is so precious, she must be attended to by a bodyguard of lies. Are we seeing a bodyguard of lies this week, to quote Winston Churchill, Pierre?
Well, I don't know about the bodyguard of lies, but I love that quote, and you were very eloquent in your presentation. But here's the thing, Jeff, that I've seen a lot of fluid drafts, like you've seen a lot of fluid drafts. So I think we can pick the first four guys. I think we can, but I don't know that. But I think we can. So if I'm going to do the first four guys, I'm going to do Matthew Schaefer. You going to agree with me?
100%.
I'm going to do Michael Misa. You going to agree with me?
Unless San Jose has that pick in play, yes, I will agree with you.
Okay, so now we're already seeing, we don't know.
Yeah.
Anton Frundell, you think he's going in the first four?
I think that Schaefer's a lock, and I think the closest thing to a second lock in this is Anton Frundell to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Okay.
Yes.
And then do you think Porter Martone's going in the top four?
Is Utah keeping the pick?
So you see what I'm saying? We're all over the map. This is why I'm presenting this to you.
Yeah.
And again, to be transparent, Jeff and I talk a lot, and this is one of the things I talk about. I think one of the fastest moving guys in this whole thing, Jeff, is Caleb Desnoyers.
I agree.
I really do.
Yep. Now, he's had, I want to say it's like 7 different interviews or meetings, whether it's, regional or Kyle Davidson or whatever, meetings with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I still think they're taking Frundell, but nonetheless, they have had an extensive meeting background with Caleb Desnoyers, the Moncton Wildcats of the Q. The other team that I wonder about is the Nashville Predators, who spent Barry Trotz spent a lot of time around Moncton at the Memorial Cup, and I don't necessarily think it's just to put everybody off the scent. Like, there are some things that managers do to put everybody off the scent. I don't think that was one of them. But I agree with you about Desnoyers.
Right. So that's at 5 is where Nashville's picking.
Yeah,
that's kind of like right in the wheelhouse for Caleb Desnoyers. So, and he was really young when I knew him because my son and his older brother were teammates in Quebec. Elliott's playing in Philadelphia. So, and I watched the father play with Marty Brodeur in St. Hyacinth with the Lasers.
St.
So like
Hyacinth?
it go a long way back with the Denway family. But what I'd say is that's right in his wheelhouse. But you said something before that was so wise. What happens if Utah trades the pick?
Why not? Utah right
Then
now.
it's everywhere.
What is it like? Is it like Utah has like, I want to say 4, maybe 5 first rounders that aren't in the lineup yet? Like there are some teams, like I always talk about teams and, how many green bananas can you have? Like at a certain point, coach is like, look, we need teams. We need players. We got to put this team together. And now you're seeing Utah bring in JJ Peterka. We're going to get there in a couple of seconds. Yep. I believe that the Peterka deal, opens up a right shot space on the blue line, perhaps for someone like Aaron Ekblad, and all of a sudden the first pair is Ekblad and Sergachev, and you're off to the races, and you're talking about a playoff spot for Utah. Like I look at Utah right now and say to myself, Matthew Schaefer is the best player in this draft. The Islanders won this draft. They get Matthew Schaefer. But look how many spots Utah moved up. In some ways, this is found money. You can make your pick, or you can use it to get something that's going to help you next year as you make a playoff push. So I'm not even sure that Utah makes the pick. Don't know.
I'm agreeing with you. So I don't know either. And, you talked about Peterka. It's a great acquisition for them.
Yes.
I understand some people in Buffalo are wondering, could we, should we, what are we getting? I get it. Josh Doan's a very useful player. Again, going a long way back, all the way back to the Brick tournament, watching him play, going to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, watching him play. So I go a long way back, And at the time, Josh was playing for a team out of LA. He wasn't playing for a team out of Arizona. He was at the Quebec Pee Wee tournament where he played for a team out of Arizona. So again, very familiar with the player. And so he's a useful player. He's going to play on your team. Michael Kesselring, I watched him play at New Hampton Prep for 4 years. Watched him play at Northeastern University for 2 years. He's just getting into it. He's a 25-year-old right now. He's just getting into it. So before everybody prejudges a trade, be fair to Buffalo, and I think be fair to Utah. Let's see how this all plays out. It's not one of those where you can declare an instant winner. But I think what Billy Armstrong did in Utah made his team a very real contender for a playoff spot. I do. I really do.
They were one of the teams that I think we circled and said, like, look, this is the year where Utah starts to go for it. Utah/Arizona, with all the draft picks and players accrued by the old Arizona Coyotes here. Like, they weren't that close. They weren't that far away when they moved from Arizona to Utah here. So I'm with you. I think that the Utah Mammoth are going to be a player at the draft. I think they're going to be a player on July 1st. And they're going to be a player next year as they push for a playoff spot. A couple more things on the draft, and then I do want to talk more about this, the Peterka deal and a couple of other deals that we saw today. And oh yeah, like all of a sudden there's a skeleton of a CBA, and it's like the fourth story. Like we finally have a peacetime CBA. It's like yeah, we'll get to the CBA. Yeah, we'll get to the CBA. Brady Martin is an interesting name. They're of the Sioux Greyhounds, sort of in the Sam Bennett mold. I was really impressed at how smart this kid was at the combine. When he was asked who he would best compare his game to, he said Sam Bennett and Tom Wilson, which just happens to be what every team is looking for right now. James Higgins is another name that's in that top mix. Certainly, you mentioned Porter Martone. Wouldn't be surprised if the Islanders try to, as everyone's talked about, not just draft Matthew Schaefer, but also try to get another pick to bring James Higgins home. Matthew Darche, the new general manager there. Let me ask you about Darche. Now, he comes from Tampa, working alongside Julien Brisebois. Not just because it's McGill, and I have a lot of respect for McGill, but he comes from, his background is he went to one of the more respected universities in all of Canada. He's no dummy. He's really smart. He knows hockey. He played. He understands the game at a lot of different levels, obviously. He's a rookie general manager. Okay, you've worked in a lot of different areas of this game. How much is Matthew Darche getting tested right now by not just other general managers who think maybe they can get one by on the new GM, but by agents as well? Do you have a thought on that dynamic of the new GM?
Absolutely. I think it's so well phrased. The answer is everybody's his friend. He's probably getting more calls than he's ever gotten in his life. and they're all testing him, every single one, including the agents, by the way.
Yeah.
One of the good pieces of news, though, I think he's been exposed to a lot because of his time in Tampa, and it wasn't like they were a neophyte team. There were a lot of veteran people there. You talked about Julian Breezeball. Before that, there was Steve Yzerman. In that group, there was Al Murray, who's one of the best amateur evaluators we've ever had in the history of the game. He's been surrounded by some really good people. He saw the do's and the don'ts of what to do in business. So do I think there'll be this little feeling out process? Yes, I do. The Higgins thing is interesting. I'm glad you brought that up too, Jeff, because at 7, I believe the Boston Bruins are picking. And and I think that's probably where Higgins is going to fall unless somebody goes off the board. Mm-hmm. What happens if the Bruins want to do a deal on, let's say, I don't know, Noah Dobson?
Then all of
a
sudden,
I think Noah Dobson's in play, isn't he?
Noah Dobson is Noah Dobson is definitely out there, and I think there are teams that around trade deadline thought they were either close or were right there to having Noah Dobson. So I don't think this is anything new with Noah Dobson. I'm trying to figure out where all of this comes from. I don't know. You get the feeling that there's a piece we're missing here. Is there a clash with the coach? Is there a clash with something? I don't know. And if it's a coach, does it go back to the QMJHL? Again, I don't know. But for whatever reason, the long-winded way of me moving along the conversation, yes, Noah Dobson, I think, is in play. And by the sounds of things, was even being asked about when Lou Lamoriello ran the team.
Oh, I can tell you right now, when Coach Lamoriello was running the team, Noah Dobson was out there. And part of it was the financial demand that they were putting on the team. Lou's a big believer in the internal cap, as you well know. Yep. He ran it for years in New Jersey. He started it in Toronto. And I think he was putting it well into play in Long Island. Mm-hmm. Noah Dobson's original demand for $11 million, I don't think sat really well with internal leadership of the Islanders when Lou was there. I only bring up Boston because number 7, I think, is where Higgins falls. And secondly, Brandon Carlo got traded out of Boston. So that opens up a second right-hand defense spot for a player like Noah Dobson. You insulate Charlie McAvoy on the right side, and your team is deeper. And I'm not saying the Bruins put themselves out there, but here's what I am prepared to say. When they did their press conference at the end of the year with ownership, Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, they said, we're not just going to be a playoff team next year. We're going to be a real competitor in the playoffs next year. Yeah. Not with the team you got right now, you're not. Mm-hmm. So you better it's not draft picks that are going to make you that team right now for next year. It's going to be real NHL players.
One other name I want to get your thoughts on quickly, then we'll get to Peterka. Jake O'Brien. Now, Jake O'Brien, listen, put up a ton of points for the Brantford Bulldogs of the OHL, playing with Marek Vanacker, who's a Chicago Blackhawks draft pick. Caleb Malhotra comes in next year. He's draft eligible. He'll play on that line. That'll be a line that'll just tear up the Ontario.
How about Nick Lardis? How is Nick Lardis?
I know, 70 goals. 70 goals for Nick Lardis.
Nick Lardis guy.
It's pretty good. 3rd round pick too. For everyone that thinks they're a draft genius.
Hats off to Chicago on that.
100%.
Hats off to Chicago on that.
Absolutely. Do you have a thought, when you look at Jake O'Brien, and by his own admission too, he's got a lot of work to do, putting on size. He's got the frame for it. You just got to put on the weight now, kid. You have a thought on Jake O'Brien through all of this here?
I do. He's a point getter. There's no question. And I think he's learning how to play in all facets of the game. But you can't take away the peripheral vision, the skill, and especially the power play stuff that he's so good at, especially he and Lardis. But if I could, for 1 second, and your reference points on this are so good, I think when I watch Jake O'Brien play, I'm watching another guy play that's in the NHL right now, and it's Dylan Strome at the same age. Dylan was one of those guys that made mincemeat of teams when he had the man advantage. He was really good at it. Sure. I think you would agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
And I see a lot of similarities. But look how long it took for Dylan to finally break through at the NHL level and really be a go-to guy, right? Yeah. It took a while. That's kind of where I see Jake O'Brien.
It will take him a while because of his size, I think, and
Yep.
when he's going to be ready for the wear and tear of the NHL. And listen, I'll be honest with you, Pierre. I look at this draft class. I don't look at anyone and say they're going to play in the NHL next year.
I think there's one guy that could, and I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they'll put Schaefer in the NHL next year. You only play 17 games this year.
Yeah.
I don't see how you do that to the kid. That's exposing him to a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. I feel really bad about it to this day. When I was in Hartford, we drafted a player, Robert Petrovisky.
Oh, yeah.
And I really felt our coaching staff was good enough to develop him, and so we didn't send him home. We kept him.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it now, and every time I've seen Robert over the years, I always apologize to him. That's on us. It wasn't on him. We rushed him. I don't think we gave him a fair chance, and his career was never as good as it should have been. And I've always told him that every time I've seen him. I've always felt bad about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You touched on something there that's really interesting here too. I've felt like this for a long time. We focus so much on the drafting piece, and we think that the drafting piece goes to the playing piece in the NHL, but there's also the development too. And I know a lot of teams get blasted. Oh, you missed on this guy. You missed on this guy. That's a bad pick. Were they really bad picks, or did they just not get developed? It's not the scouts that fell down. It's the development piece wasn't there for these players. Like some teams you look at and go like, yeah, one guy from this draft that played 15 games and that's it. Then the next year, all your picks, nobody played and all that. And I look at it and I say, this is a very well-scouted league. I don't think the issue when you look at something like that are the scouts. I look at it more, the development piece isn't there for these guys. And that's out of their hands.
I completely agree. This is the unseen part of the National Hockey League right now because we are rushing players because younger players are cheaper. And the cap is now finally going up. So you always want to have young players coming through your organization. So I'm going to use the Florida Panthers as an example. Let's just go here. A.J. Greer, I think that was his third team. Thomas Nosek, I think Florida's his fourth team. Jonah Gadjevich, I think it's his third team. And then look at the rest of them. Look at all those guys. Like Gustav Forsling's a revelation right now.
Yeah.
What happened? Sylvain Lefebvre is what happened to him. Yeah. You look at the forwards up front. How did they improve? I'm going to say Jamie Kompon and I'm going to say Tuomo Ruutu. Yeah. I'm going to say those two guys. So as much as I respect and love Paul Maurice, head coaches don't do that development stuff. Head coaches have to deal with the media. They have to deal with the headaches of all the pressure of handling the team. Guys have a bad day. Guys have a good day. He's dealing with all that. But the assistants have to run the development part. I think Florida's done that as well or better than anybody. And to your point, I think the development part is overlooked, and a lot of scouts get blamed for bad development. I really believe that.
Amen. All right, Buffalo and Utah. It all began, they got the whispers about it last night, and JJ Peterka for Josh Doan and Michael Kesselring, right shot defenseman, as you've noted. At this time of year, and then in the off season, let me frame this way, Pierre. I really don't like to make my mind up about teams until I see the entire body of what a general manager does in the off season. Just like I look at Vancouver, and right now, like Rutherford and Alvin are getting knocked for the Evander Kane trade. I keep saying to myself, I don't keep looking at these as one-offs. Look at the totality of what an organization does leading into next season. So let me temper it that way. Right now, it's not a great-looking trade for the Buffalo Sabres. This is a frontline guy in JJ Peterka. I think we can all look at him and say like what's the minimum for him next year? 35 goals on a team like Utah, probably.
I would say, yeah, probably.
Right, and Josh Doan is not a first line player. Michael Kesselring is going to probably line up with Owen Power, and it's a kind of defenseman that Owen Power probably should be playing with. But right now, this one tilts to Utah. If we're doing like hot take right away, who won, who lost? How do you see this trade?
It's one of those you're going to have to wait and see. The other part that nobody's talking about, Devon Levi, who's one of their top prospects in Rochester, he played with Michael Kesselring at Northeastern University. So there's a sense of familiarity there. And you have to think that Devon Levi is going to be in the NHL next year. So that's a positive thing. And I'm sure they picked his brain. One of the things that I think Buffalo's actually done well, they've evaluated American-born players extremely well. Josh Doan, even though his father's Canadian, Josh Doan's an American kid. And you look at Kesselring, same kind of thing, American kid. They're really good at that. It started with, I think, a mandate from ownership by Mr. Pegula. We're going to be experts in certain areas, and one of those are going to be American-born players. Because if you look at a lot of the guys they've added since Mr. Pegula's been there, American-born players. You know, like I'll use the last one. Josh Norris comes to Buffalo from Ottawa. He's an American-born player, even though his father's Canadian. So I'm just saying that, like that kind of, I think that's kind of infiltrated their organization.
There's something there, and let me give you another example. So the year that they drafted Casey Middlestat, this is when Jason Botterill and Randy Sexton ran it.
Yep.
All the scouts the night before, everybody was in agreement. You know, the night before, okay, who are we taking? If Martin Necas is available, we're taking Martin Necas. Comes time to make the pick, and Botterill and Sexton stand up and say, okay, we're taking Casey Middlestat. And all the scouts went, what? I thought we just agreed we're taking Martin Necas. Okay, boss, we're taking Casey. But you're right. Like when the Buffalo Sabres get a chance, their default setting is go to the American kid. You're right.
So I think it's early to judge a trade. So I want to give it full opportunity to flourish. Michael Kesselring has never played better than what he's done in the last calendar year.
That's
Jeff,
true.
he's been really good.
That's true. You're right.
He's been really good.
Yeah.
He's been if you look at his career stats, he's mostly been a minus player because he's tried to do too much. This is the first time at a real high level he's been a plus player on a non-playoff team. That's hard to do, as you know. And I thought he was important for the Americans when they were overseas at the World Championships this year. Mm-hmm. They win a gold medal. So hats off to him for that. But here's what I'd say. Josh Doan is going to be a very useful utility player for them. He's not going to be a first-line dominant player like a JJ Peterka can be.
Okay, so we'll see what happens next with these two teams. Do you buy my theory now that right side spot is open on the blue line with Aaron Ekblad and a lot of cap space still for Utah? Does that make sense to Pierre McGuire?
100% it does. The only caveat I have to disagreement, what happens if Florida does something and finds a way to keep Aaron Ekblad?
It seems
outside of that, I think your theory holds a lot of weight.
I'm with you. I just don't know whether, and I keep trying to figure out, okay, so if this guy's 8, and then we'll see what they give Marchand, like how much money is left here unless they make a move. Like is Aaron Ekblad coming back for 6 or 6.5? I don't know that I see it. Like I know what you mean. I'm sure Ekblad would love to stay. I'm with you,
but that's why the caveat is if he decides to stay there, because I think they're going to do everything they can. But I love your theory. You know, you look at it, Sergachev and him, that's a good start for them.
That looks good. That's a good
really
first pair.
Good start for them. Andre Tourigny just became a real good coach.
Why, did they get another goalie?
Well, I think that's going to be part. I do think that's going to be part of their
too.
Plan. I do think that's going to be part of their plan. I really do.
I think they're looking for a goaltender, certainly. Okay, a couple of minutes here with you. I know it's bizarre, but here we are. Like the skeleton of a new CBA is out there, and we're all sort of wrapping our minds around the idea of 84 games, 4-year extension, playoff salary cap, whatever that looks like. For the first time since Gary Bettman took over in 1993 from Gil Stein, previous to him, John Ziegler, we have a peacetime CBA, and one that's not done with a lockout, and one that's not done with a hammer. We have one that's done between the NHL and the NHLPA well in advance, over a year of the CBA expiring. What do you think of that?
I think it's fantastic for the growth of the game. I think it's fantastic for a league that's really going in the right direction. And I think there's one thing that helped it along. I could be wrong on this, and if I am, I hope somebody from the league will call me. I think with expansion potentially coming very soon with Atlanta and whether it's Houston or some other team, I think the league made the point to the Players Association, hands off of that money, but we're going to make good on other things. And so everybody picked their battle. And I don't see anything about expansion fees being shared to the players. I think that's what the league wanted. On the other side, there were a lot of things that the Players Association wanted, and I think the league compromised on those. And that's why I think we have some labor peace.
I think one of the smartest things the NHL did was make public 3 numbers: 95, 104, and 113, well in advance of negotiations. Guys, this is what we're looking at for the salary cap. And all the players went, whoa. I think that went a long way to labor peace. So guys knew what they were looking at. And all of a sudden, to your point, if the Players Association thought about getting a piece of the $2 billion expansion fee for Atlanta, Houston, wherever else, that kind of went away. We're not willing to fight over it because we know 95, 104, 113 is out there and waiting for us.
And I agree with that. I think that was the biggest thing that created this labor harmony that you're speaking of. And in my 35 years in the league, this is probably the best relationship I've seen between the NHL and the NHLPA. And I think part of that is because of Marty Walsh. And I think part of that is because of Bill Daly and Gary Bettman. I really believe that.
Don't disagree. Peacetime CBA. Who would have known? Pierre, look forward to tomorrow night. Mon ami, we'll talk then.
Can't wait.
There he is.
Can't wait, my man. Take care.
The great Pierre McGuire, who will be with me tomorrow for our watch-along draft special. We know Schaefer's going number 1. Or do we? Yeah, we do. We know Schaefer's going. We should know Schaefer's going number 1. A lot of exciting things happening with the New York Islanders. Zach, do we have Bud to do? And do like a janitorial work here real quick?
No, Bud.
We're all good. Speaking of the Islanders, they're poised to make big news tomorrow, and the Islanders organization made big news earlier this week by announcing Rocky Thompson as the new head coach of the Bridgeport Islanders, the AHL affiliate to the Big Squad. Rocky joins me now here on the sheet. Please welcome to the broadcast, Rocky Thompson. Rock, how are you today?
Good.
How you doing, pal? Everything good there?
Oh, good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. We got you good now. First of all, congratulations. You know how the coaching fraternity feels about you, and you know how a lot of media people feel about you as well. When things went sideways for the Philadelphia Flyers, I don't think anyone looked at Rocky Thompson and said, oh, he's going to have a hard time. But did you think that?
Always nervous, there's no doubt. And but I kind of was viewing it as a potential opportunity. It's been 5 years since I was a head coach, and quite honestly, I really missed it. When you're an assistant coach, you assist in the culture of a team that your head coach wants to institute. So you do your best to support that. Sometimes it aligns, but really you're not in control of that culture. And so as a head coach, it's one of the most important things I just feel like, and it's always been a big strength of mine in the past. And so I'm really, really excited about that opportunity to do that again, to do it here in Bridgeport, where they've started something new from the top down to us there. So I can't wait to get started.
It's an interesting time for the Islanders too, and Bridgeport's going to be a huge part of this. And, just talking to Pierre McGuire before you came on about, drafting is one thing, and then we tend to ignore the development side of things. And Rock, I'm sure you've seen plenty of players that, when they're identified and they're drafted, they look like can't miss, but then that secondary piece isn't there. And so when they get to the NHL, you say, the scouts didn't do their job. But that's not true. It was the second part that didn't happen. Do you have a thought on that?
Sometimes guys come in and they're just not ready yet, and they need a little bit of time in the American League. And I think in the right environment with the right opportunity and the right supporting cast that you can develop players. I had a number of players with the Chicago Wolves that people felt like these are not going to be NHL players. Nicholas Hague or Zach Whitecloud, Dylan Coughlin, Keegan Colasar. So these were all players that people thought they weren't first round draft picks. They weren't of the high pedigree. Some of them were just free agents out of college, but I give them so much credit that they worked so hard. They were so receptive. They wanted to be better and they wanted to get to the next level. And those are examples of guys who were able to do that. They did it in a winning environment there with the Wolves. We ended up not winning the Calder Cup, but we got a couple of wins from it. Mm-hmm. And they took that experience and went to the National League. And a couple of years later, they were important parts in a salary cap era where they were low-cost guys that were really able to help assist Vegas in their Stanley Cup wins. So I take a lot of pride in that. because that's our job down there is to develop these players, to create a winning culture, and then ultimately have them move on to the next level and have success and help those NHL teams.
This is an interesting time for the Islanders because it seems like it is a transition from the top on down. Lou Lamoriello has moved on. This is now Matthew Darsh's team. And whether it's, Isaiah George, who's, knocking on the door to being a full-timer in the NHL, he's probably there now. The team is poised to draft Matthew Schaefer, and maybe even they get someone else in the top 10, and maybe even bring in someone like James Hagens. Cole Eiserman is going to be a huge piece of the future here. And you're starting to see okay, whose timeline are they going to do this on? And regardless of whose that is, there's going to be this infusion of youth that comes along with the New York Islanders. As a coach, how do you approach that? Knowing that, okay, this is going to be a team that's transitioning a little bit here. There's going to be more kids, and there's going to be a lot more young faces in Bridgeport. What does Rocky Thompson do with that?
So excited about it. Those players that you just named, they have things that I can't teach them. But what comes with youth is sometimes inexperience and certain things that are very teachable that helps them translate, and things that you can teach in a short period of time when it comes to play without the puck. So that's always excited me. And in Chicago, we never really had those first rounders. We did with Eric Brandstrom and Cody Glass, but they were kind of moved on a little bit quicker. And so creating a foundation of play without the puck so that when they do get called up, their skill sets that they already have, like Cole Eiserman, for an example, it's an elite goal scorer. You can see when to score that many goals as a true freshman in college, it's absolutely incredible. Having the Richie from the OHL, who's a big-bodied player, very skillful. I can't wait if I do get the opportunity to work with those players to help their development at an expedited pace so that they can get up to the National League and do what they need to do to put the New York Islanders over the top and help complement the older players and the good players that they currently have on their roster.
I'm glad you mentioned Cal Ritchie too. That's a name that I probably should have included in there. And who knows? Every player needs more games, less games. I don't know if you have a sort of rule of thumb, defensemen need more games in the American League than forwards do. It's kind of a general rule that I've always felt. Do you have rules like that? You know what? If you're a defender, you're going to play a little bit longer in the American Hockey League than a forward would. Is there an easier transition depending on the position?
I think it's less rules, more of a process. Defense is a very tough position. I would say center is another tough position because there's so much more responsibility without the puck that can get exposed if your checking ability isn't where it needs to be, or even just processing information without the puck can be somewhat of a learning curve. And so it's different for everybody, but sometimes defensemen, that's why you never want to give up on defensemen too quickly. You want to see progress, but things don't always happen overnight. Incremental progress is important. And when they have a good skill package and a foundation underneath them coming in, that our job is to do it as quickly as possible, but we do have to exhibit patience because sometimes it takes a little bit of time for other people or certain positions. And you don't want to ever miss out on a guy because you're a little bit impatient.
I want to get to one of my favorite stories of you, and that's the 2015 Fort Lauderdale draft story and the presentation that changed your life. But I want to get there in a second. But first, one of the things that I've always admired about you as a coach, whether it was as an assistant in Edmonton, as a head coach in Windsor, with the Chicago Wolves, with the Philadelphia Flyers, etc., you seem to have a real natural curiosity about things. And the one thing I remember, anytime anyone asks me, what's Rocky Thompson like as a coach? And I always say he's curious, but he treats information not as if it's a final destination as much as it is a temporary staging post. He's willing to say, this is what I believe this to be right now, but I'm open to change my mind. Not a lot of coaches like changing their mind, Rocky, but I've never felt that you were someone that made up his mind about really anything. You have beliefs, you have a certain way about you, but there are elements in the game that if you're not curious about them, they'll go right by you and you'll find yourself left in the dust. And I've always felt that one of the reasons why you endure is you have a natural curiosity about things. Has it always been like that with you?
Like there's, like you said, there's core things that won't change with me without a doubt, but I always want a competitive advantage. And so that's why I read so many articles. I like to get different opinions from whether you're a numbers person, an analytics person, to Bobby Clark when he came into our room, and I could sit down with him in the room and just talk for, an hour before we go out on the ice. And so just how they would used to do things. How did you take face-offs? Just anything and everything in order to get a competitive advantage. And like you said, sometimes old things work and then sometimes new things work. And it's our job as coaches to absorb that information and try and translate it and to apply it. And I think if you're evolving as a coach without changing the core principles that are important to you, that you're going to continue to have success as this game evolves. And you can see how the game changes and how styles of play change. And sometimes they change back to how things used to be, but it's just trying to stay ahead of that curve, I think, is so important. And the more you talk to people, the more information you get, the better you're going to be.
Okay, let me ask you though, because when you're with the Philadelphia Flyers, like you're like the alumni is a prominent part of the Philadelphia Flyers. So you're around, and like to your point, there's Bobby Clark, and there's Paul Holmgren, and there's Bill Barber. Like, what are the nature? Like, I'm curious. Like, give us a little idea of like what those conversations are like.
Oh, they're different every time. Sometimes we're just socializing, and then sometimes it gets into hockey because I'm curious. And here's the thing. I mean, I was a fan, right? And the way I played, I never got to watch them play because this was before my time, but I always got to see them on videos or the Rock'em Sock'em Don Cherry videos, right? Things I grew up with that I kind of resonated with me being a physical player. And now I'm sitting there talking to them, you know what I mean? And I'll tell you what, they're such great people, all three of them. And they really treated me so good. And so I could go on and on. Like sometimes it's just stories about when they were playing and what Philly was like back then during the 70s. And sometimes it gets more hockey related with what we're doing and, their opinions on what they see with us. And that's why I think it's just so great to get different opinions, whether you're new school or old school. I think they're all valuable. And those guys, they're winners, and they were winners for a reason. And they've been in this game forever outside of their playing career. So the experience they have with players and managing and the types of players that they had over the course of their tenures as managers or coaches. I mean, it's so invaluable.
Did you ever hear the Fred Shiro bacon and egg story?
You told me that one.
Okay, so did I tell? I'm trying to remember. Like, did I tell Rocky that story? Like, it's the chicken made a contribution, but the pig made a commitment. I wish, and he's no longer with us, of course, but I wish I had a chance to talk to Fred Shiro. Like, I wish I had a chance to talk to Anatoly Tarasov. So, the larger than life figures and some of the great coaching minds of the game. Who are the guys that did it for you? Like, who are the coaches that even just now you look at and you go like, oh man, I could learn so much from this guy?
In my coaching career, I was with the Edmonton Oilers organization. I kind of worked my way up there, but Billy Moores was there. Mm-hmm. And Billy Moores was a Claire Drake protege, if you will, and worked with him for years at the University of Alberta. So outside of Canada, I think people in Canada that are a little bit older knew who Claire Drake was. And Claire Drake was way ahead of his time.
Oh,
and completely. So was Billy.
Yeah,
as you know. I mean, I think he is in the Hockey Hall of Fame now. Yes, and justifiably so. It probably should have been a lot longer ago that he should have gone in, but just like I said, and Mike Gabinet is a really close friend of mine. And so we're kind of like hockey nerds. So Mike and I, who is Claire Drake's grandson, who coaches at University of Omaha, Nebraska. So we get together, and Mike all has his grandpa's old books, and we'll talk about systems. And then he brings up these 1-1-3 left wing locks, and it's like, well, that was old. That was things they used to do back in the day. And then it was so old, it's new again, but So whether you're like Mike and I talk about it, and then we talk about his grandpa and Gene Ubriaco, I got to get to know when I was in Chicago.
Legendary Penguin. Legend. Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yep. And Gene just loves hockey. Detailed, again, was another guy who was way ahead of his time and how he viewed the game at that time. in the 80s and the early 90s. So, but Billy Morris was really instrumental in myself in the development of players, the arts and the sciences he calls of coaching, where there's a blend of the two. As obviously we know, the science of coaching is the X's and O's, and to dumb it down, the art of coaching is the Jimmy and Joe's, your culture, your relationships. And I believe with the science of coaching, you could be the best knowledgeable coach in the world. If your players can't listen to what it is you're saying, you're never going to get them to perform it. But you can have the art of coaching down and even get rid of the science of coaching, and your team can still have success because those guys will compete so hard. They'll play hard for each other. Now, when you can blend them both, now you got something special. And so I was able to learn that at a young age and continue to learn along the way.
You know, it's funny listening to you talk about, you know, the old days and where the trap came from. I would hear stories from old timers talk about Hap Day was doing this when he coached in the 30s. And all of a sudden, like, the Devils discovered it. It's like, they were doing this in the 30s. Come on, like, get over us.
Billy would say that.
By the way, Claire Drake went in 2017. So he's been like that. That was and you're right. Like, Claire Drake could have gone in much sooner. And that's how influential. And if you talk to anyone who had any passing with Claire Drake, everybody sings from the same hymn book about how great a coach, great a man, everything Claire Drake was. Now let me close on this one. So one of my favorite stories and favorite moments. This was pivotal in your life. A presentation you gave at the Coaches Clinic, Fort Lauderdale Draft, the McDavid Draft, 2015. And Warren Reichel and Bob Bugner, I believe, were there. And right away, it was like, can you please come to Windsor to interview for the Spitfires coaching gig? Can you share that story with our viewers/listeners?
So I had a year left on my contract in Edmonton, but the whole staff had been let go, and I didn't know my fate at the time. So I reached out to George Kingston, and I was like, I was concerned I was going to lose my job. And so I knew the perception of me as a player because of the way I played the game. To me, it was all psychology. I really wanted to intimidate the opposition because I wanted to, have my team have the most success possible. So I had the long hair, I had the braids. So I was like, I got to change the conversation of myself because that worked back then, but people thought I was crazy. Really, I'm not. I was just good at those types of things, right? And so changing that perception of me was difficult outside of the people that have worked with me. So the Edmonton Oilers, I'd only been in their organization, so they valued that, but a new coaching staff was coming in. And so it's like anything, you don't know the guy. So I thought I got to get myself out there. I'm going to do this presentation. I'm going to do it offensive concepts, essentially is what it was. It was skill, principles, and adjustments. So offensive play is really what it was. So I started the thing out. I go right behind Scotty Bowman, who kind of does the introduction to the whole thing. And I'm like the keynote speaker at the beginning. And so, I'm sweating, obviously, right? Scotty's right there and stuff. So the first thing I said is, I'm like, I have a picture of me. I think I had knocked down Oliwa when my arms are in the air and my hair's all over the place. And I said, now I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, what in the round world is this guy going to teach me about offense? And I said, this was my first shift in the NHL, and it was quite an offensive shift. And it was me throwing, drawing hands with Kristoff. But at the end of the day, the feedback that I got from it, and every coach was there. Even to this day, when I was interviewing with some jobs at the National League level as an assistant, that some of the guys brought up seeing that presentation back then, and that it really started to change the conversation on myself from how I was as a player to what I've developed into and was developing into as a coach. And so Boogie saw that right away. He came up to me and he goes, how would you like to be the coach of the Windsor Spitfires? And I was like, well, you're the coach of the Windsor Spitfires. He goes, I got a job with Pete DeBoer. I'm leaving. I'm going to San Jose, but I really want you to meet Warren Reichel, Bundy. And so met Warren. Obviously, we hit it off. And then they brought me to meet the ownership group, and the rest was history. And we ended up winning a championship there a couple of years later.
Like how much, because like the moment after it's over, the story of that draft is, of course, Connor McDavid. He goes drafted first overall, etc. But like the buzz around like the hockey people was like, did you see Rocky Thompson's presentation? Like you were aware of that, right?
What they were expecting.
We were expecting that guy that when he dropped his gloves, his eyes rolled back and rang no sail. He was a shark out there. Just saw the whites of his eyes. No, but it was one of those moments because I honestly, Rock, I've been to plenty of those. And what happens is a lot of guys are just sort of there to be seen sometimes. And coaches start talking and he's like, oh, wake up. Another cup of coffee, please. But like with you, it's like everybody straightened their back and started listening. And you know what it's like that's rare, especially with that group. Like that was a real big moment for that annual event. Huge.
So I was fortunate, and you got to put yourself out there sometimes. I was talking with a coach just today, and he asked me that, and I brought that up. He goes, "What can I do to help myself advance to the next level?" And I said, "Put yourself out there."
Yeah.
So that, because I had to put myself out there. That's not an easy thing to do. It's hard getting up in front of 1,500, 2,000 people. Coaches that are Hockey Hall of Famers. Yes.
Peers,
and you're like,
peers.
What am I going to say to them that they don't already know, like that could have value? And, but sometimes you got to take a chance and it can be rewarding in the end. And so, yeah, I was fortunate.
It was great. Listen, this has been great too. Congratulations on the Bridgeport gig. You're going to do great. You get to get some really cool young players to work with as well. Looking forward to seeing what the Bridgeport Islanders have in store next season with you at the helm. Thanks for doing this, Rock, and good luck, pal.
Thanks, Marek.
There he is, Rocky Thompson, the head coach of the Bridgeport Islanders of the American Hockey League. I'll tell you what, one of the, I think I mentioned this on the show the other day, Zach, about one of the first conversations I had with Rocky. I was working at CBC doing a show, and Tyler Dello, who was doing analytics for the Oilers, called me and said, "Hey, Rocky, they're in town to play the Maple Leafs." And it's like, "Hey, we're around the corner. We're going to go to Hey Lucy, have some dinner. Why don't you come and join us?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that's great." And honestly, we sat there, me and Rocky and Tyler, and I think Rocky was way more interested in Tyler because he was fascinated with, and this is sort of the early I don't want to say trend, the early phase of analytics becoming part of the hockey lexicon and the hockey conversation. And he just gobbled this up. And I remember talking to Dello after. I'm like, this guy's going to be a head coach. This guy is just like gobbling all of this up. Now, when he played, Rocky was a totally different guy. Rocky was like the fire coconuts off the wall. Oh yeah, Rock's different now. But he was scary tough. You know, I was talking to one guy today. I'm like, "Hey, I've got Rocky Thompson on the show today." He's like, "Ooh, I was like legit scared of him." Like, I would fake that I wasn't, but I was like, really, this is like a tough guy. I was really scared of Rocky Thompson. A lot of guys were. He had the great look too, man. He had that great look. Kind of like you right now. You're kind of frozen here on the program here. All right, we have a few things to get to on the program here. Want to remind you about a couple of things that have happened today. The JJ Peterka trade has gone down. Zach, you still with us, by the way, bud? You're frozen on the screen. JJ Peterka goes to from the Arizona Coyotes, the Utah Mammoth, in exchange for Josh Doan and Michael Kesselring. Something I think we mentioned on the program the other day was have a look for Daniil Tarasov, the backup netminder for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And could something happen there? Could he end up getting moved? And he did. He's off to the Florida Panthers. That would be in association with Bill Zito, formerly of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and also to make way, more than anything else, make way for Jet Greaves, who is the goaltender of the future, and maybe even he grabs the net next season off of Elvis Merzlikins. So that'll be your battery in Columbus next season, unless I'm missing something, and Columbus does something here with Elvis Merzlikins. Also, Mark-Edouard Vlasic on waivers for the purpose of a buyout. You know what? I think people really forget just how good, once upon a time, Mark-Edouard Vlasic was. Mark-Edouard Vlasic was like all-star team good and was like Team Canada team good. He was never flashy, never like did one thing better than everybody else. Was just a really good, solid, safe, steady defenseman. Really good defender for a long time, And that San Jose Sharks team, which everybody, including myself, every year said, this is the year the Sharks are going to do it. The Sharks are going to win the Stanley. He was a key piece of it. Because I know we always focus on Thornton and we focus on Marlowe, Pavelski, etc. Man, he was good. Marc-Edouard Vlasic was. But it looks like that's most likely the end of the road for Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Riley Smith, 1-year contract, Vegas, $2 million there as well. Is there anything that we've left off the program so far here before we get to our friends at Ninja Crisp?
I think I lost internet for like 20 seconds there.
You did.
So that's why I was out. But in that time, did we do Frederick Gaudreau was on the move there to Seattle.
Seattle
Ben also signed a contract
Seattle
today.
wants a full team of third liners.
You said it.
That's my first thought. We'll see what Botterill does here. I by the way, I do think Seattle is going to at least try to do something big. I don't know if it's going to be at the draft, most likely July 1st or into the summer, but Seattle is a team that is going to, like, Botterill is going to do something here.
Yeah.
Botterill's one of those teams. Like Utah you watch, and they're starting to make their big moves here with JJ Peterka. Seattle is the other one that you watch here to make some big moves. And the other one, Jamie Benn. Mm-hmm. Not a surprise, and a bonus laden, like 35 plus bonus laden deal. Not a surprise at all. All right, I think we're gonna actually get to the question today, because yesterday we did the Ninja Crispy inbox, and we read it, and then Wish and I just started talking.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff that started happening.
Because
Like,
we're sloppy. Like, seriously, dude. Like, sloppy show, sloppy host, all of it. Okay, here we go. Time now for the Ninja Crispy inbox, presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer.
Meet the first of its kind, the Ninja Crispy portable cooking system. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand, so you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
Okay, it is an all-in-one system that includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy, thermal shock resistant as it is, and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hands, folks. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and re-crisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. And as promised, we're actually going to talk about an email today. Unlike me and Wish just blathering on like we did yesterday. So, Zachary, what do we have in the inbox today, sir?
this one comes from Jack Dawson. What is the reason for benches being placed on the same side? I know it happened years ago. I think opposite sides worked better, especially by putting benches entirely in the neutral zone at Caperjack 94.
Great question. All of this happened in the mid-'60s. So, I want to tell a quick story about Chicago. The Chicago Blackhawks, we always look for like home ice advantage and things you do like you can't do now because everything is standardized. But teams would shorten the bench for the visitor's side, or Scotty Bowman would paint the visitor's dressing room. So the guys would get changed sniffing paint fumes, and no one can figure out why the Montreal Canadiens just won every single game, damn it. I digress. The Chicago Blackhawks used to have before the NHL made them change? The old Chicago Stadium. No. On the Chicago Blackhawks bench, there were 2 gates for players to go in and out. The visitors' bench had 1. Home ice advantage. And then eventually the NHL said, you're going to have to stop that.
We can't do this anymore.
Really, this really makes us look, this is too much of an advantage. Shame on you, Chicago, or rather, good on you, Chicago, for trying to take home ice advantage to a whole new level. So until the mid-'60s, who was it that wrote in? Was it Jim? Who was it?
Jack.
Okay,
Dawson.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack Dawson. You're right. They used to be on opposite ends, like opposing each other, until the NHL mandated, and this would have been, I want to say 63, maybe 64, that penalty boxes, there would need to be two penalty boxes. Well, originally one, we'll get there in a second, needed to be in the neutral zone. And if you have benches on either side of the ice and a penalty box on one side, then it's a quicker change for one team as opposed to the other team where the player has to skate across the ice to make a change. So it became an unofficial, well, not unofficial, it became officially, it was an advantage for one team. So the NHL mandated that on one side was the penalty box and on the other side were the two benches. Now, it used to be, and there are a couple of famous incidents here that changed it. There used to be that both teams shared the same penalty box. Like, you would fight a guy, and then you'd go sit next to him in the penalty box. And you just went on good faith that the players weren't going to do something dumb. But Bob Pulford and Terry Harper did something dumb and continued to fight. That would have been I think that one was at Maple Leaf Gardens. Pretty famous fight too, Pulford and Terry Martin. And then there was another one where there was a player for the New York Rangers. This happened at MSG. Guy by the name of Bob Dill. And he got in a fight with Rocket Richard. Rocket Richard knocked him out, right? Went to the penalty box. They brought Bob Dill to life. And Dill decided he was going to go for more in the penalty box against Rocket Richard again. And Rocket knocked him out in the penalty box. And that incident became known as, and you can look this up, the pickling of Bob Dill. One of the great headlines.
That's bad. Come on.
The pickling of Bob Dill. One of the great moments in the history of hockey. And that it was because of that they finally said, okay, stop. You guys really need to stop this, and we're gonna have two penalty boxes. Now, one of the great stories of NHL benches, I want to say this was in the 30s. It was Conn Smythe, who ran the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Art Ross, who ran the Boston Bruins as coach and general manager. So Conn Smythe, imagine if this happened. You think of like teams trolling each other now, right? Brad Marchand thanking teams on Instagram. How do you think this would go over now? The Toronto Maple Leafs, your Toronto Maple Leafs, led by Conn Smythe, before a game in Boston, took out an ad in the Boston Globe accusing the Boston Bruins of playing sleepy, boring hockey. And if you want to see what a real team looks like, come watch them play the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night, which infuriated Boston Bruins fans. And what Conn Smythe did is, for the game, as the manager of the team, top hat, tails, on the Leafs bench, chirping fans for the whole game. This used to be the NHL. Can you tell that I really want to do a hockey history podcast? This used to be the NHL. The Maple Leafs took out an ad in the Boston Globe saying the Bruins play sleepy time hockey. Come watch a real team, my Toronto Maple Leafs, on Saturday night. And guess what happened? The Bruins won 3-2.
Yeah, shocker. Yeah, that's not bulletin. That's literal bulletin board material.
100% it is.
Cut it out of the paper.
Cut out of the paper.
And pinned it.
The Maple Leafs paid for an ad in the Boston Globe to troll the Boston Bruins, and then lost the game.
That's why this shit that's our dealing with now. That's why this is happening. That's why I'm going through this.
Still to this day, it continues to happen. All right.
Two things for you quick, Jeff, before we go.
Shoot.
Two things.
Yeah, what do you got?
One, do you know what team still uses the benches on opposite sides? I had to look this up to make sure I was right. That's what I was doing. It's not it's a junior team.
Is it Peterborough Pete's?
Oh, shit. I actually didn't think about Peterborough. For some reason, I feel like maybe they do. No, I will check that right now. No.
Who is it?
The Aurora Tigers.
I was just there on Saturday at the Aurora Community Center. Yeah, that's right. They are okay. That's a junior A team. Yeah, you're right. And they have that big step down. It's big step down to get to the rink as well.
Which, by the way, like when I was a little kid, like I'm talking like 6, 7, we did the skate where you go between periods.
Yeah.
Just imagine like 5, 6-year-olds stepping off that step.
That jump?
For people who don't understand, Jeff, you'd say probably like a 2-foot.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm not exaggerating, like a 2-foot.
No, yeah,
step,
no, it's
right?
a big drop. It's a big drop. Like whoa,
Yeah.
jeez, holy smokes.
Also, there's a question here. I couldn't let it go by without me asking you before
From
we
the
finish
chat?
show. Yeah, Jeffrey.
Shoot. Uh-oh.
Question for you.
My parents used
What
to call
did
me Jeffrey when I
Buffalo
was in
give
trouble.
up? What did Buffalo give up to acquire Jeff Skinner from Carolina in 2018? I'll let you answer it and guess who asked the question.
What did Buffalo give up in the Jeff Skinner deal? I don't know. What did they give up? I can't remember. Can't remember that one. What was it?
Well, I believe that was the Cliff Poo trade.
Cliffy, that's right. Second round draft pick of the Buffalo Sabres. I thought Winnipeg was going to draft. Winnipeg was all over Cliff Poo that year.
That was the year that he was in Buffalo, and when he got drafted, the whole crowd was yelling, "Poo!"
That was the second day because Austin Matthews went first overall on the Friday before. Oh, that was Cliffy, eh? Cliffy used to work out at the gym that I'm at with my kids. Yeah,
So
Randy
who do you
Smith's
think
place,
asked you
Body
that
Smith.
question?
Colton?
No,
Who?
De Silva.
Oh,
Came in here.
RDS was like Ryan was at the gym too, and like Cliffy was there. Who else was there? Justice Dundas, Scott Kosmachuk, like all those dudes. Ryan De Silva was just probably a kid there, barely old enough to piss straight, looking at all these OHL guys. Oh, one day. Next thing you know, he's playing for Blainville.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yes,
he's
he
your
was.
buddy.
Yes, he is.
And now we never see him at the gym anymore.
He's busy, man. It's the summer.
I know.
He's
yeah,
working
yeah.
at golf tournaments.
I know. I see him on
and
Instagram. He's golfing. I'm like,
Going
skates
to
my kids every
weddings.
now
He's
and then.
busy,
I know.
man.
He's
busy.
I know.
Let him be.
Don't be shy about coming in. Incline bench, flat raise, anything. Take your pick. Let's go to Silva. Used to be an inspiration. This guy does TikTok dances after scoring goals. Infuriating benches.
Used to be an inspiration. He's such a dick.
In the gym, there's
an inspiration.
in the gym for the younger kids. I am serious about this. Like in the gym for the younger kids, like all the guys that played junior hockey, like for kids my age, like my son looks up to all those guys. Like Ryder McIntyre, who just finished up with the Peterborough Petes, played the full complement in the OHL. Like he's the gym captain at the gym, and like all the younger kids look up to him. It's good. It's healthy. Right, like there's a whole sort of progression. Also, Mac Lemon was that guy once upon a time. He went to, he played Oshawa. Did Mac play Oshawa? Anyway, I mean, and he went to a couple of Maple Leafs camps. But like all these guys are inspiration for all these younger kids, whether they realize it or not. Most of them don't, because they're all donkeys when they're that age, and they don't realize that all like the 13 or 14-year-old kids are like, yeah, one day I want to be like that guy. I'm sure plenty looked up to Ryan De Silva. I would discourage it for him. That donkey, no way.
So he
Choose
says
wiser.
he's allergic to the gym once retirement hit. That's what he just said.
Yeah, Jim with a G, not a J.
Anyways,
Show up every now and then, Ryan.
Cameron Gaunce just got traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Brendan Gaunce for
I was
Cameron
gonna say,
Brendan
Cameron.
Gaunce. Brendan
Yeah,
Gaunce.
okay, because Cam just
My bad.
retired.
Yes, I know. I was like, well,
Gaunce
as soon as I
brothers
said
used
it,
to
I'm
work
like,
out
wait
at
a
the
minute.
same. Gaunce brothers used to work out at the same gym at Body Smith.
Yes.
Is this just a whole segment brought to you by Randy Smith's gym?
Yeah.
Just gonna run down all these: Ryan De Silva, Cliff Poo, the Gaunce brothers, Gormley's own.
Brendan Gaunce off to Columbus.
Good family. His dad runs the Markham Waxers, as you well know. Has for years.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, wonderful family. Okay, let's see what you come up with here. The Sheet is powered by Body Smith International. No, sorry. The Sheet is powered by FanDuel. Home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. What do you got?
All right. The draft is coming up tomorrow night, as people know, and you should be watching it with us right here on the Daily Faceoff channel, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Truth.
The Jeff Marek alongside Pierre McGuire.
The Pierre McGuire.
And the Pierre McGuire, correct. And I was trying to look, because FanDuel has a bunch of draft stuff up that you can take a look at. You can bet on some stuff. And
Matthew Schaefer.
Fun things.
Matthew Schaefer, first overall. Okay.
No. That stuff is like, okay, yeah, that's fun. Sure, like we can get into that. I figured you like this one more.
Okay, what do you got?
Who will be the first person to be hugged by the first overall pick? According to FanDuel, the leading odds, minus
No
200.
way.
The parent, sibling, plus 155.
FanDuel's got this?
Yes, I thought this was so cool. I was like, yeah, we got to do this today.
Good on FanDuel. Oh, wow. This is going to be, maybe Sib, maybe his brother.
I think
Ooh, so it's going to be Matthew Schaefer.
I think sibling is a good bet here.
You think his older brother?
Yes. I think his brother's a good bet here.
Wow. It's either going to be dad or bro. I'm going to go with dad.
Right.
I'm going to go with dad. Are you going to go with older brother? I'm going to go with dad on this one.
Okay, so we'll find out live on the show tomorrow in real time. But yeah, how cool is this?
That's amazing. I never would have thought about that for a second.
I went and looked, and I was like, "There's no way." And I think, okay, this is an opportunity we have to take. We got to do this. So, I think brother. You think his dad. So Jeff with the parent minus 200, which I think, like, it makes sense. But I'm just going with, like, I think there's a greater chance.
Maybe I'm just going with parent because I am a parent.
You'd hope that your son hugs you first.
Whatever, old man.
Beat
Beat it, old man. Out of the way. I got to get up on the stage.
the camera cuts to you and your family, hugs his brother first. You standing there. What?
I know, just like hanging, son, the guy that paid for all those sticks, guy that paid for all those skates, that paid for all that training, all that ice time. Don't even get a hug. Beat it, old man. Get to the top and kick the ladder down. Sorry, old man, you did nothing. It's all me from here. This is me kissing my mirror.
Yep, that's it.
All
Okay,
right.
thanks for everything. And you get to be hugged second.
Yeah.
Or third.
I was going to say, don't flatter yourself, Dad.
Yeah.
The other Sibs. Maybe
But that's fun.
That's great. Good on FanDuel for that one.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that they'd have that. But good on our friends at FanDuel. That's awesome. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be doing a regular show at 3 o'clock Eastern. Brian Burke returns after a 2-week hiatus. Looking forward to talking to Brian on NHL Draft Day. And then, as Zach mentioned, our watch-along goes tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern. One thing that I do want to mention as well is we have a new podcast on the Nation Network. Nothing to do with hockey, everything to do with baseball and stuff. This is super cool. 6-inning stretch featuring Whit Merrifield and Lindsey Dunn, a different take on baseball. That will make its debut next Wednesday. We'll bring more information to you before then, but a new podcast launching here with Whit Merrifield, who is one of my favorite Jays when he plays. So very much looking forward to that. Thanks to Pierre McGuire for stopping by.
Quickly.
What do you got now,
Sorry,
too? What are you
I have
jumping
to do
all
this.
over me?
Dylan Cousins on Coming In Hot tomorrow.
Oh,
Dylan
right.
Cousins
Yes.
on Coming In Hot. Sorry.
So
I
Dylan,
should've done a better job before I left.
Is he gonna? Yeah, you're too busy like taking texts from Ryan De Silva and like insulting me and stuff, and giving me like Cliff Poo trades. I heard Cliffy's coming back.
Sorry.
Make comeback. Do you see Kuznetsov is coming back? Hoping to play in North America next year.
Things.
Two people you never thought would be in the same sentence: Yevgeny Kuznetsov and Cliff Poo. But there it is. Thursday, June 26th, 4:11 timestamp, 4:11 Eastern. Bam.
Yep, put that one in there. There you go. I'll grab that.
It's going in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Thanks to Pierre McGuire for stopping by. Tomorrow, Pierre and I at 7 o'clock Eastern for our draft watch-along. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Rocky Thompson. Like, I'm really happy for Bridgeport. Really happy for Rocky Thompson. And I know it's been tough going in Bridgeport. There's like a new energy in the organization now. I shouldn't say new. Well, there is a new energy and a different vibe right now with Matthew Darche at the helm of the New York Islanders, and there'll be probably more of an accent placed on player development at the American Hockey League level. And happy for Rocky that he's the one shepherding these young kids into their career into the NHL. So thanks to Rocky Thompson for stopping by. Thanks to all of you for listening or being part of the chat on YouTube. As always, give the big thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel here, Daily Faceoff on YouTube. Tune in tomorrow for our draft special. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, whatever, always appreciate it. Thank you very much. Audio is my home, and I believe we're going through the golden age of audio again, whether we want to call it as such. Appreciate every download and always appreciate your attention, either live or in archive at YouTube or on the podcast. Thank you. Back tomorrow with Brian Burke at 3 o'clock Eastern. Before we get there, though, Morning Cup of Hockey at 9 a.m. with the Impact players, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen. And then
Jeff, I think they're done Fridays.
Done?
I think Fridays they're done.
So they just went back to doing Fridays, and now they're done Fridays?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Those guys are never beating the vacation allegations.
Well, their producer's nickname is Vacation.
I know.
What a couple half-milers. Here I am putting them over. Oh, the Impact players, they get our started. First voices on Daily Face-Off every day. Oh, they're off tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's awesome. DFO Live at noon. Me, Zach, and Berkey. Tomorrow at 3. And then our draft watch along with Pierre McGuire. Hope you can join us. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Out of words, out of ideas, out of sounds. So enjoy the rest of your day. Back tomorrow at 3. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.